I get a lot of questions about what happens when you make a phone call or when to make a phone call to Child Protective Services. So I thought I'd just give you a little bit of a pointer here. So, first of all, as mandated reporters, our obligation is actually to make a phone call whenever we suspect any kind of child abuse or neglect. It doesn't mean we have to have proof, it just means that we have to have a suspicion. It's really important that when that happens, you make the phone call. When you make that initial phone call, they're going to ask you a series of questions, and depending on the answers you give, they will make the determination as to whether or not it warrants Child Protective Services actually going further. If it's a matter of there is a suspicion, then Child Protective Services will usually come out immediately if it's an immediate threat, or within 24 hours if it is something that can wait, let's say, until the next morning. They'll usually come to the preschool, and at the preschool, they will separate the child from the rest of the group. They will ask the child questions. Now, it has been my experience that sometimes the people who come are not actually as qualified as you'd hope they'd be. And so, one of the things that I've always done is that if you're going to take the child and question the child, I'm going to be present in the room. I can be in the corner, I can be on the opposite end of the room, but I would never leave a 2, 3, or 4-year-old child alone with someone from Child Protective Services because that's very stressful. The child doesn't know who that person is. The child might already have some kind of separation anxiety. And so I always want to make sure that I am offering the child the best possible scenario and keeping my mouth quiet so I'm not mixing into the business of Child Protective Services. When that phone call is made to Child Protective Services, you don't have an obligation to call the parents. However, in several cases, I have always made a subsequent call to the parents to let them know that I have contacted Child Protective Services. I'm not suspecting any particular person. I'm just obligated by law to make the phone call, and so I wanted to let you know that I've done this. Most parents, while it's a nuisance and really difficult to deal with, if they have nothing to hide, will actually be okay with Child Protective Services coming over. If not, you have to be prepared for the repercussions, but I want you to be aware of one thing. You might be the only person who will ever make that call on that child's behalf, and you might be the only one who actually could save that child. It is actually not true that the child is always removed from the home. The child is only removed from the home if there is a clear and immediate and persistent danger to the child. Otherwise, the parents might just be given some social social worker to come and do some counseling, some psychological services. They might be mandated to take parenting courses, and only in extreme cases are they separated from the child, especially in cases where there's habitual drug use, alcoholism, violent behavior, and things of that nature. Make sure that whenever you do make those phone calls that you do not share that information with anybody else in your center. It's important that families are able to retain their privacy, especially if it's unfounded and it turns out that it was nothing. And so feel free to call me if you ever have any more questions, but I just wanted to give you a few little heads ups.